Hello, I'm John. Welcome back. So I've got a tag video for you today. This is the 10 Untouched Books Tag, which was created by Rainier Books. I was tagged by Alan at Alan's Reads, who very kindly tagged me, even though I'm not very good about responding, and I'm really bad lately about doing tags. I have not been doing tags, and I wanted to, I just haven't gotten around to it. Anyway, so for this tag, the 10 Untouched Books Tag, there is only one prompt. Present 10 books from your shelves that have been there at least a year or more and present them. This is about creating awareness to read from your shelves, enhance sustainability, and maybe even saving some bucks. Okay, so I like that idea of creating awareness to read from your shelves. As for enhancing sustainability and saving some bucks, I don't really worry about sustainability with my own book habit because I buy exclusively used books. So the way I tend to look at it is that I'm saving a lot of books from the dump a lot of times, or from being recycled. And I don't really worry about the saving money on buying books because I buy mostly $2, $3 books. So I don't spend a lot of money on books even when I do buy books, which is not infrequent. And the thing about me saving money is that when I save money, I spend the money on books. So, but I like the idea. And, if you buy new books, and you could certainly enhance sustainability and save some bucks if you wouldn't buy so many new books. I understand that. But anyway, so I have gathered 10 books here. And, if I start sweating, you'll have to forgive me. It is very warm in here today. And I think there are actually 11 books here, but there's actually only 10 books. One is a double. So I'm just going to dive into it. I've had all of these for more than a year, I think. I'm pretty sure. So forgive me if maybe one is like 11 months or 10 months. But I'm pretty sure I've had these all for over a year. So the first one is Primeval by Judith Kelman. And this is going to be an interesting tag because I don't know anything really about these books. I'm just going to read the blurb on the back mostly. So Primeval by Judith Kelman. Grim secrets, hidden terrors, and Erica had come to stay. It was a rambling Victorian mansion, a maze of odd rooms and passageways. Some thought it charming, others called it quaint, but Erica knew better. She'd come to Bramble Farm to work on the final novel of the illustrious Teresa Bricklin and to find a safe haven in which to bear her child. But from the first moment, Erica knew that something was not right, and with every passing day, her sanity and life come closer to the edge. For behind the closed doors of Bramble Farm, a terrifying secret awaits. In the best-selling tradition of Mary Higgins Clark. Primeval by Judith Kelman. Okay, the next one is Dune. And I have two copies of Dune. This was the one that I've had for many years. This is one that I picked up for $1. And I just really liked the sandworm. So, yeah. And, I mean, do I really need to explain Dune? I think most people probably know what Dune is about. Let's see. Which one should I read? Old school or newer? Let's read the old one. Dune is one of those rare novels that is met with unanimous praise, both in science fiction and literary circles. Since the time of its first publication, it has become a best-selling classic, hailed as a landmark in the field and an amazing feat of creation. That told us nothing about what Dune is about. Okay, let's read the other one. All right. Set on the desert planet Arrakis, Dune is the story of the boy Paul Atreides, who would become the mysterious man known as Muad'Dib. He would avenge the traitorous plot against his noble family and would bring to fruition humankind's most ancient and unattainable dream. A stunning blend of adventure and mysticism, environmentalism and politics, Dune won the first Nebula Award, shared the Hugo Award, and formed the basis of what is undoubtedly the grandest epic in science fiction. So I probably mispronounced some of that, but I've actually never seen either of the Dune movies, like the one from the 70s or the one from a couple of years ago. Are there two movies from a couple of years ago? I don't know. I really don't watch contemporary movies very often. Sometimes I'm surprised by them, but I've been let down so many times by them, and not just the mainstream ones. That's more of that's a different issue. It's not like the shall we say trending reasons people don't like movies. It's just I don't really care for lots of CGI. I don't like the way that cinematography has gone. It's not nearly as interesting as it used to be. Anyway, that's a whole different issue. The writing's not as good, and just a lot of movies just fall flat for me anymore. And just in general, I just read. Anyway, that's a separate issue and not cogent to this video. Anyway, the next book is The History of the Siege of Lisbon by Jose Saramago. What is this book about? When Raimundo Silva, a lowly proofreader for a Lisbon publishing house, inserts a negative into a sentence of a historical text, he alters the whole course of the 1147 siege of Lisbon. Fearing censure, he is met instead with admiration. Dr. Maria Serra, his voluptuous new editor, encourages him to pen his own alternative history. As his retelling draws on all his imaginative powers, Silva finds, to his nervous delight, that if the facts of the past can be rewritten as a romance, then so can the details of his own dusty bachelor present. So I wish I could show you what Jose Saramago looks like, but he's covered by this sticker I didn't take off. So I was really interested in this the first time I heard about it. I don't remember when that was or where that was. And it took me a while to find it. And then I tried to read it. I did actually try to read this. And it is written in a way that is quite different from books I'm used to, in that it uses really, really long paragraphs. They're really, really long, several pages long, and they're really, really long sentences. And it's kind of, as I was reading it, I read a few pages. It's kind of hypnotic in a way. Like, I wouldn't have expected that, but I don't know, I wasn't ready for it yet. Let's see, the next book is The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. I just really wanted to show this cover. I think this is a great cover. And let's see. I don't think this one is going to tell us what it's about. Yes, it will. Okay. Some of these they tell you and some don't. I think this is a book club edition. Not 100% on that. It's the 1976 Hugo and 1975 Nebula Award winner for Best Novel of the Year, and that's pretty cool. The Forever War. Space war is hell, especially for Private William Mandela, drafted into the Army by the Elite Conscription Act of 1996, who was thrust into a brutal interstellar conflict that raged millions of light years from Earth. But battling a savage alien enemy was not the hard part, nor was fighting alongside a promiscuous co-ed cadre of civilization's brightest and toughest young people, who, by the way, considered their veteran commander a very lethal social misfit. As the enemy was pushed farther away, time dilation became a growing problem. Now Major Mandela found that he was in the Army for about 2 years, or 3,000. It all depended on where you were keeping time. His real test was in coping with the astonishing, even evolutionary changes the people of Earth were undergoing. Mandela's tour of duty was probably the longest of any person who ever took up arms. Yet, still the warrior in him fought on. I've heard a lot of people talk about this book, and they really, really like it. And I've heard that there are 2 different endings. So I'm not sure how you know which ending you have until you get there. But I've heard one is, it's like, apparently they cut part of the ending from the original release, and then Joe Haldeman added it back on later. Something like that. I'm not really sure. The next is Carrion Comfort by Dan Simmons, and this thing is a brick. And I haven't read this yet because Dan Simmons is very hit or miss with me. So he had a collection called Love Death that I really struggled through. I liked Hyperion, the first 2 Hyperion novels. I liked the one on the ship. Was it The Terror? I think. I liked that book. But there are high points and low points to Dan Simmons novels, and I like them and I don't like them, and sometimes I don't know what it was, but in Love Death, and I've read another Dan Simmons novel, and I don't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but there was something about Love Death that just, and it wasn't the subject matter, it was something to do with the writing. I did not get on with the writing in that book, and I just haven't touched another Dan Simmons novel since. Swan Song? No, that was McCammon. I can't remember. Swan Song was by Robert R. McCammon, I think. Next is Alexander Dumas' The Night of Maison Rouge. I probably butchered that. My French is horrendously bad. Like I considered reading aloud a book I have from 1918 about the First World War and like contemporary stories of what was going on. But there's, it's all taking place in France and Belgium, and the pronunciation of French towns, it just frightened me. My French is bad. Let's see. Non-phonetic languages frighten me. Okay, here we go. Paris, 1793. The onset of the terror. A brave Republican named Maurice rescues a mysterious and beautiful woman from an angry mob and is unknowingly dragged into a secret royalist plot involving the imprisoned Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, and her enigmatic, fearless champion, the Knight of Maison Rouge. The first and only modern translation of a forgotten tour de force from the master of adventure fiction, Alexander Dumas, Julie Rose's rendering of this exhilarating tale is full of intrigue and heroism, honor and romance, naked ambition and selfless sacrifice. So that's pretty cool. I had never heard of this. I just found this. It was $1.99 apparently. I found this on a shelf and I thought that sounds really interesting. I'd never heard of it. And I've read The Count of Monte Cristo, and I enjoyed that. I felt like, so The Count of Monte Cristo is a serial written for like a newspaper, I believe, and I really felt that Dumas stretched it out because he needed that paycheck every now and then. There are just certain sections of it where I was thinking, this isn't really necessary for the plot of this book. I wonder if am I the only person who feels that way with the complete unabridged Count of Monte Cristo? Anyway, that's probably heresy. Okay, here's The Brothers K by David James Duncan. I've wanted to read this for a long time, but family dramas and I don't really tend to get along. So let's read what this one is about here. Once in a great while, a writer comes along. Well, we'll skip that part. What do you say? This touching, uplifting novel spans decades of loyalty, anger, regret, and love in the lives of the Chance family. A father whose dreams of glory on a baseball field are shattered by a mill accident. A mother who clings obsessively to religion as a ward against the darkest hour of her past. 4 brothers who come of age during the seismic upheavals of the 60s and who each choose their own way to deal with what the world has become. By turns uproariously funny and deeply moving and beautifully written throughout, The Brothers K is one of the finest chronicles of our lives in many years. So I thought that this sounded really, really interesting, and I'd like to read this. Like I said, I don't always get along with family dramas. A lot of times it'll be like the husband is cheating on the wife, and the wife is sad about it and mopes about it a lot, and then she has an affair of her own, and then you have like the kids, and they grow up, and then they have affairs on their spouses, and there's kind of like Marlon Brando going, I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender. I was a terrible, terrible imitation of that, but I don't know. They don't do a lot for me. And I usually, I've said this before. I don't know if I've ever said this on a channel before, but if you want to get me interested in a novel, throw in like a mad scientist creating zombies, or throw in like a scary clown with a knife or something. something, because reading 600 pages of family drama, even though I might want to read it and I'm thinking I might really get something from it, is just like, it's like, you know, here is a natural fiber rope and an ice axe, go climb the Matterhorn. And I'm not Reinhold Messner. So the next book is by someone I've talked about recently, who co-authored a book with someone else and has co-authored a book with someone else in cat magic. So this is by Jonathan Barry with Whitley Strieber. And I'm not exactly sure what this is about. I remember when I bought this. Let's see. Set in the world of modern American witches, cat magic is full of action, terror, and wonder, enormously entertaining and profoundly human. Maywell, New Jersey is a sleepy little town, the forces around it quiet, until in a laboratory, George Walker completes his first experiment in reanimation. He kills an animal and brings it back to life. Next, he will try a human subject. But before he does, he and the entire town of Maywell will have to deal with the force his first success unleashes. That force is determined to prevent George's envisioned success. The scientist's work must not continue, and the work must not interfere with the events waiting for young Amanda Walker. Amanda, George's niece, is an accomplished illustrator. She's come to town to meet renowned writer Constance Collier, hoping to illustrate Collier's next book. But Amanda is there for someone else's hidden purpose, a purpose arising out of desperate need. It is a need that may require Amanda to enter death itself. If Amanda succeeds, her life will be changed forever, in ways strange beyond all human knowing. But Amanda may not be allowed to live long enough to make her choice. Brother Simon Pierce, in his Tabernacle of the Risen Lord, finds himself moved to action against her. The strange object in his pocket is stirring his own dark history into new life. That history is far longer than Simon knows. So is Amanda's. The tale is ancient beyond memory, and in those ages of greatest change, it must be relived, in all its fear and hope, its wisdom and its passion. One of those times is now. So, yeah, that is cat magic. And I got that because I really like the cover. I've been interested in reading Whitley Strieber's books for some time. I just don't see them very often, so I grabbed this one. And I bought this one out, it was $1. So there was about a 2 or almost 3 year period where all the books at Goodwill were $1 a piece around here. And I bought a lot of them. And to be fair, I went pretty wild. And lately I have been started going over the shelves looking for, I actually did earlier today, I don't know if you can tell, but I've gotten rid of some of my mysteries. I've been putting them in big piles, and I'm going to go sell them, and I'm going to use the money to buy books that I've wanted for a long time. But I went wild, and I just like, that's interesting, because after 2020, all of that, the way that I was coping was buying books, and that probably wasn't a good thing. But like I said, I've really scaled down my buying these days, and I'm really more on top of things than I used to be. Oh, this is damaged pretty badly too. See? Yeah. That's I didn't notice that. I think I have noticed that. I didn't realize it was so bad though. So this is Ken Follett's Night Over Water, and there's a flying boat, and I am fascinated by flying boats. Probably because of the Indiana Jones movies. Like every time he had to go somewhere overseas, he took a flying boat. Not one of those. There were only a few of those made. I can't remember exactly what those are. I'm sure it'll tell us. But they didn't last very long. They were sort of, the war came and they were requisitioned for military use, and they just never really came back. Okay. Night Over Water by Ken Follett. September 1939. Just a few days after Britain has declared war against Germany, a giant seaplane splashes down at Southampton, England. Pan American's Flying Clipper, the most luxurious aircraft ever built, is New York bound on the last civilian flight out of Europe for years to come. Its boarding cargo is a group of passengers desperate to escape something more menacing than war, their hidden, haunted past. Ken Follett's first-class ticket to suspense is set in an era when flying was still a peril-fraught adventure. The Clipper's pilot still hunted the wind to conserve precious fuel. Its navigators followed the nightlight of stars, and all lives hung on the captain's fateful choice at the point of no return. Only Follett can give you an experience like this, aboard the legendary Clipper on its lonely way across the Atlantic in a thrilling, ominous night over water. Among the Clipper's passengers are a titled English fascist and his eccentric family, a sheltered young beauty hungry for a reckless love, a runaway wife and the American who seduced her, a feuding brother and sister closing in for a kill, a versatile thief, handsome and charming, a most wanted escapee, and an ancient princess who has known better worlds. They will be in the air for 30 hours, soothed by the carpeted lounges, the curtained beds, the gourmet dining room, and the endless champagne. That is not an exaggeration. The Flying Clippers, they were luxurious, almost beyond belief. Yeah. But as storm clouds mount over the Atlantic, tension in the Clipper's cabin gathers turbulent force. Once inside the flying palace, there is no escape, no turning back from the nightmare that awaits them all. Follett recreates an aviation legend just as the world was about to change forever. Night Over Water is a dazzling novel of skyborne peril and dangerous liaisons on history's most romantic airplane, the last flight of the fabulous Flying Clipper. Doesn't that sound good? But I have heard that Ken Follett, I can't remember who said this, but they said that Ken Follett seems like he likes to hurt his readers by what he does to the characters. And yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. That's what somebody said, but anyway, so that sounds good. Just have to kind of gear myself up for that, if that is true. So I actually didn't grab enough books. I had to get up and grab another one. So I went with this one, Willa Cather's One of Ours. So I have read a couple of books by Willa Cather so far, and I liked both of them. I liked one better than the other one. So I've read The Professor's House and, oh good Lord, it wasn't My Antonia, it was O Pioneers. I really, really liked O Pioneers. As for The Professor's House, I felt that it was sort of two different stories shoved into one book, and that they didn't really have much to do with each other. And I felt like the first story, which is about a professor who is dealing with his family problems. I know I said I don't really care for family dramas, but I really liked that book. I just wish that she had expanded the professor's story into a complete story, because at some point in the book it shifts from the professor's story to his friend's story. It's kind of a long thing there, but the friend's story really is sort of important to the professor's story, but on the other hand, it should have been a book of its own. So The Professor's House and the second part, they should have been separate books, maybe tied together, but they should have been separate books. That's my feeling about it. So anyway, this is One of Ours. And I really like these. These are vintage paperbacks and vintage classics. I've just always really liked these, the way they're put together. So let's see what this is about. Oh, this won the Pulitzer Prize, apparently. That's what it says. Willa Cather's Pulitzer Prize-winning narrative of the making of a young American soldier. I didn't realize that. Claude Wheeler, the sensitive, aspiring protagonist of this beautifully modulated novel, resembles the youngest son of a peculiarly American fairy tale. His fortune is ready-made for him, but he refuses to settle for it. Alienated from his crass father and pious mother, all but rejected by a wife who reserves her ardor for missionary work and dissatisfied with farming, Claude is an idealist without an ideal to cling to. It is only when his country enters the First World War that Claude finds what he's been searching for all his life. So I'm sorry that was a little bit clunky, but that sounds pretty good. You know, the thing about these books, while I have these books out, while we're talking about this issue, the reason that I have so many books and that I don't use the library or anything like that really is because when I go to the library, they very rarely have what I want, at least here. I don't know how libraries are in big cities or anything like that. But if I go to the library, you know, I just don't usually find what I'm into or what I'm interested in. And I have a very, I never really know what I'm going to read before I start reading something. I just bounce from book to book and genre to genre. So I prefer to have quite a few books so that at any moment on a whim, I can just grab something and go, oh, that looks good. So, you know, I can't promise to read any of these books soon. And that's not even really the reason I wanted to do this tag. I just kind of wanted to show you some books off my shelf, which I find to be pretty fun. And, you know, I may very well tomorrow go, you know what, today I want to read The Forever War. Or today I want to read one of ours, or maybe next week, or something like that. But the reality is, sometimes I go years before I read a book, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't mind that. Now, I know some people, they like to have less books and to read them systematically, but I'm just not set up that way. Yeah. Okay. So that is the 10 Untouched Books Tag created by Rainier Books, I think. Let me look. Let me make sure. Yes. 10 Untouched Books Tag created by Rainier Books. And I was tagged by Alan at Alan's Reads, who very kindly tagged me, even though I am very bad at these tags, or very bad at following up on these tags. And you know what? I have decided that I'm going to split this into two. I'm going to do one for fiction, and I'm going to do one for nonfiction. So I will post that soon. I will post this one first, and then I will post my nonfiction version soon. Maybe tomorrow, maybe a couple of days from now, maybe. But it'll be soon. Okay, so I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank Alan, and I want to thank Rainier Books, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.